And we have a quorum, and welcome everyone. This is the meeting. Will please come to order. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you and any visitors that may be in the audience and staff for this July 13th, 2022 meeting of the North Clackamas Parks District Advisory Committee. And this meeting is being convened obviously on Zoom, and please note this meeting is being recorded, as you all heard. So the first item on the agenda, since we have new people, and everyone's here, I love it, I love it. So I would like to have, since not everyone knows everyone, a chance to have everyone do a very brief introduction, and I will go first because there are people who I may not know here. So I'm Grover Jeffrey Bornefield, 32-year resident of the district, and actively involved in this process for the last 7-8 years. And I'm just thrilled that our expansion is growing and getting more and more people participating in our NCPRD. So that's it for me. And just as a bit of background, I have 25 years working in nonprofits and 15-20 years working in large organizations in organizational development jobs. So that's it. Who's next? Don't be bashful.
Okay, I'll go because everybody else seems to be muted. So I'm Anita Blackmar. I live in sub-area 2. I am blessed to live near Rivervilla Park. It's a short walk there. And that's how I got tuned into the Parks District in the first place. And anyway, just went from there to being here.
Super.
I'll go.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Stee. I am a resident of Oak Grove. I participated on the Milwaukee Bay Park Steering Committee. I'm also a 22-year, I've worked for 22 years in the planning and park planning profession. And I thought I'd join the DAB to give a little bit. So thank you all for being here. It's nice to meet you all.
If this is
I can go next.
All right, never mind.
Oh, go ahead.
Dave, it doesn't matter. I'll make mine brief if you want. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. My name is Joel Bergman. I'm the representative for the community centers, currently, of which there is one, the Milwaukee Community Center, serves the entire district, though. I've been a member of the Clackamas County Advisory Board to that center for about 8 years, I believe. And I am the representative from that board, as selected by that board. Lived in the district most of my life, have some kids that enjoy a lot of these amenities, and have been working with the DAC and prior to that the DAB, one of the few carryovers from that. It's been a real treat to kind of watch this evolve and watch the participation evolve as well. So welcome to all the new members. Looking forward to getting to know you.
Okay, this is Dave. I was going to suggest initially we do it by the sub area we're in, so we wouldn't all be speaking at once. But I'm Dave Gowan. I'm sub area 4, and I'm also on our CPO, the Westmount Scott Sunnyside CPO. And glad to meet all of the new people here.
Hi, I'm Maureen. I'm from sub-area 4. Been a resident here since in Portland since 1991. And I enjoy doing some citizen volunteer. Thank you.
I'll go next. Desi Nicodemus. I live in sub-area 5, and I'm also Milwaukee's city councilor in Milwaukee, representing the city. So this is, I think I don't know, I've been at this now for almost 2 years. So that's it for me.
Thank you.
I'll go next. Paul Savas, Clackamas County Commissioner. I am the liaison, so I'm a non-voting member. I kind of observe and I'm there as a resource. And so I usually watch and listen intently. And I'm just glad to see all these sub areas come together and see we got a full house. So thank you all for participating.
I'll go. Mr. Gatimo, feel free to ask me multiple times on how to pronounce my name. I live in Jennings Lodge, sub-area 1, Meldrum and River. I was born in Portland, left briefly, came back. Only lived here for 3 years. I am a non-classically trained engineer, so I'm moonlighting as an engineer. Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Great, thanks. You want to go, Katie?
I can go. I'm Katie. So I live in unincorporated Clackamas County. I'm area 3. So I'm new to this group as well. I am a pediatric occupational therapist by day. So I visit families in their homes, and I have a 5-year-old myself. So I'm excited to be here and see what's going on.
Thank you. How about you, Raphael?
Hello, everyone. I'm Raphael Cal. I'm a retired Air Force meteorologist and working for the Bonneville Power Administration's Public Affairs. I too have kids, lots of kids. I've got an 18-year-old with a daughter, so I'm a grandfather now too. I have a 1-year-old, a 12-year-old, and then like a stepfather for 2 others that are 10 and 11. So full house and a dog.
Wow. That's great. So have all the DAC members had a chance to introduce themselves? I think so. Okay, do we want to get to this? Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike, please.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I haven't had a chance to meet our new members either. So welcome, everybody. I'm Mike Bork. I'm the North Clackamas District Director. Just coming on a year. In a couple of weeks, it'll be a year that I started. Officially, we say August 1st, but I started a week before then. A lot has happened in that year with both the DAC and the district, and a lot more coming. So I'm really excited to see robust participation and see the new members here and move the district forward. So welcome, everybody.
Great, thanks. Do we want to do staff and consultants now, or when it's their turn? It's up to me. It's up to somebody else.
Probably introduce Heather, and then everybody else is here for the first agenda, or one of the first agenda items. So they'll be able to introduce themselves probably.
Thanks.
And I'm Heather Cook. I'm also with the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District as staff, and I'm the Planning and Development Manager. And we'll have a brief update for you tonight, but mostly here to listen. Nice to meet you guys. Welcome to the new folks.
You'll also be hearing a lot via email from Jessica, who is down here recording and taking minutes. But Jessica, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself again?
Hi, I'm Jessica May. If you guys have any questions or need any assistance with anything, I can be of help. And then I'm also the one who sends out the agendas and updates. So if you ever have any questions or don't get those, then I can help you with that as well.
And thank you for that regularly. Great. Okay. So we'll do the rest of the folks when their session is up. They can introduce themselves then. I don't care now, either one. Later. Okay. So the first item on the action items is election of the chair and vice chair. And we are open for nominations for chair. Yes, Anita.
I would like to nominate you, Grover Bornefield, for chair. I know you've served 1 year and you can serve 1 more year, and then it gets handed off to somebody else. And the 2 main reasons I want to nominate you are that you're passionate about getting parks developed in areas that are park deficient, and that you advocate for greater public participation in determining what happens and what gets prioritized in our district. And having you as the chair would keep these goals in focus as you have discussions with the director and the staff, and you help set agendas for DAC meetings. And I would like to say that I don't know anyone who puts more energy into civic engagement than you do. And that having founded and helped run large nonprofit organizations for at-risk youth, you have a lot of experience in how organizations work.
Well, thank you very much. And Joel, your hand's up.
Thanks, Grover. Sorry, I didn't have my remarks as prepared on it, but that was perfect. I wanted to make a nomination of Ryan Stee, though, as chair for this coming year. I think his expertise and his balanced tone and his commitment to this district are all admirable qualities. And I think to just set an overall tone for this being the most productive committee possible, I think Ryan would be a terrific addition as chair.
Great, thank you. Any more nominations? Okay. Ryan, would you like to say a few words?
Me, Grover?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate that. Thanks for the kind words. Yeah, I would love to potentially be your chair. I have 22 years of experience in planning and thinking about the big picture, and I feel like I can bring us as a group together to focus on big picture items and get us into our long range planning, talking about how we're funded and talking about how our district is managed, and helping to make those changes. And so thank you.
Great. Obviously, your hand's still up for a reason, or? Okay, good. Well, then I'll go. So first of all, thank you for that nomination, Anita, and those kind words. And yes, I have been involved in the ramping up of this for the last 7 years. And I really do believe we are finally in place with a full cadre of ready and willing participants to take on our next year to work on the system plan and the outreach that goes with that, to work on the capital improvement plan and clarifying that, the things about SDCs, the elimination of the zones, all the things that allow us to begin to or return to having a full focus on all of the residents of NCPRD and having those interests be put in place. And I will really do hope that over the next year, we make a huge amount of progress continuing down that path. And then I would be happy to turn it over to someone else, but I think we have a lot of work to do and we need to shift what we're focusing on to things that haven't been focused on significantly yet. Particularly around how we do the performance Clackamas, focusing on what are the priorities of the residents, and then what's the plan for that, and then what are the strategies, et cetera, and the budgets and the tracking of the budgets, all of which is in the current budget in the letter from our county commission, county executive was speaking to performance Clackamas for NCPRD, and I'm really looking forward to having that unfold. So that's what I'm focused on, and thank you. So I think it's time to, I don't know if there's anything like questions, so it's just time to vote. So all those, how do you want to do this? We'll poll people. Jessica, can you poll the DAC?
Sure. Joel?
Sorry, well, Ryan.
Okay.
My vote is for Ryan.
Siri?
Grover.
And Grover?
My vote is for me.
Anita?
I vote for Grover.
Ryan?
I vote for myself.
Katie,
Grover.
Raphael,
Grover as well.
David,
Grover,
Maureen,
I'd like to vote for Grover tonight, please.
and Desi.
Ryan,
Okay. So
Oh, sorry.
it's, thank you all. And thank you, Ryan. I really do hope you will consider being the vice chair, because one of the things I appreciate is the opportunity to set agendas, because for me, that's a critical part to what we're doing. And we have a whole array of agenda items to get on our agenda. So now that we have a full team, we can get going on that. So now, thank you all. We'll open up the nominations for vice chair. Yes, Joel.
I nominate Ryan as vice chair of the DAC for all the aforementioned reasons.
All right, thank you. Any more nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, your hand's still up, Joel. Good. So Jessica, I guess we don't have to. It's you get a unanimous vote. I assume that's how it works. I vote for you. Do you want to poll? Somebody want to give some guidance here? When you have one candidate, I don't know why we have to go through a poll.
It's not necessary, Chair, as long as there's no opposition to appointment by acclamation, essentially.
Okay, is there any objection to appointment by acclamation? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Hearing none, congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Yay.
will help.
Yeah. Okay, the next item on our agenda is to approve the DAC meeting summary. And someone are there any, what's the official words there? It says, are there any corrections, additions to the summary? Hearing none, the minutes stand approved as submitted. And our next item is the Boardman property naming, which we discussed at the last meeting. And you all had the materials. So we explained the items last time, and now we sent the materials following that. And are there any comments, questions before we vote? Or we need a motion, and then we can second that, and then we can vote. So would someone like to make a motion?
Yes, I motion if people have read the submissions and are prepared to vote, we do so now.
Okay. And we had 3 choices submitted by the committee. And they came from, I forgot the verbiage, but it's like there were 24,000 postings and nearly 2,000 engagements and 50 comments, and that was for the NCPRD side. And then from the community planning organization in the Jennings Lodge area, there were just over 100 people who weighed in and made their suggestions. Yes, your hand's up, Joel.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just maybe this is housekeeping. The motion was made to hold a vote for naming. Is that correct?
To choose a name, to
Yeah.
choose. Yeah.
So is there any action on that? Or is that?
Yeah, well, the policy says that we need to determine 2 choices in order to send to.
Yeah, no, I understood. I heard the motion. I didn't hear a vote or if there was a second, or I just wanted clarification on the motion too. That was all. Just an annoying housekeeper. That was it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. It takes a team, as they say. Sorry, so that was the motion, that we would vote on the 2 highest of the three choices. The committee brought back from all the materials, three choices. And then we get to choose the two and then vote for them in order. Which one's the highest and which is the second highest. And would somebody like to second that motion?
Second.
Very good. Seconded by Anita. So are there any discussion? Do we want to talk about the three names that had the highest number of recommendations? I have at least one thing to say, depending on which part of the materials you read. In fact, there were 20 people who said Boardman Wetland Nature Park, and then 16 indicated Boardman wetlands, they're all wetlands, sorry, natural area. And then there were two additional ones that said Boardman Wetlands Nature Area. And as a side note, there were 7 people, not counted in those first two, that said they didn't either nature park or natural area would be fine with them. So there was a total of 43 people who indicated the top two, and you had the other two, so that's out of 45. So yes, Anita, your hand's up.
Yeah, I was just thought maybe we'd have a little discussion about the names.
That's-
And the things
we're doing.
what I was thinking about was that if you call it a nature park, it seems, well, if you call it a natural area, that in my mind anyway, I associate that with something that's less developed and maybe not as ideal for ADA or for young children or something. But if you call it a nature park, I think it kind of covers the naturiness of it, but also the fact that this place has a playground and I think is very ADA compliant as far as I know. So I just kind of leaning towards nature park, but I don't know if other people would have the same association about nature park versus a natural area. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Raphael.
And I'll second that. The natural area usually for federal government at least is an area that we wouldn't have people in, and we wouldn't really support lots of people into the area, where nature park is something we want people to enjoy nature in.
Excellent. And I concur with what both of them said in the sense that if you look at the actual facility, and I live 2 blocks from it, it is made to be, best I could tell, it's fully ADA qualified, people of any, and it's got side rails out over there, and you can go out and see things you couldn't see, except from the shore, and now you go way out in the middle, and there's a study area and classroom and all those things, and besides the play area. So I also think the nature park is the first choice. Now, our idea is we're supposed to send 2 choices. So if in fact that ends up being the highest one, then based on the stuff that was talking about the natural area, then the third highest number of specifics for the same name was wetlands nature area as opposed to natural area. Thoughts, comments? Okay, Maureen.
Well, I think we did our due diligence in our outreach campaign, and the community has spoken. And they're pretty clearly evidently a top 1 and number 2 from the citizens. And again, these are just submissions for the board to consider, and they have the sole discretion to eliminate any of those names and pick one of their own choosing as well. But I think it's pretty straightforward where we were at as far as the people have spoken. Thank you.
And Desi.
Yeah, I just want to voice that, unfortunately, the tribe, the reach out to the tribe didn't go as planned, but like naming this wetland after colonizers and folks who stole that land, it just doesn't sit well with me. So I just wanted to put that out there, and like maybe we could call it wetlands, natural area, or, it just doesn't sit well. And I just wanted to voice that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, yes, Ryan.
Yeah, I'd like to second what Desi said.
Okay. And Anita?
Yeah, I also want to thank you, Desi, for saying that. It's an
Right.
important thing. And now I'm thinking, oh, what was the Boardman family anyway? I actually don't know the history.
Well, they were a pretty incredible group of colonizers, if you will. No, I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, they came from back east. They came out and made, they're not the same as the city of Boardman out in Eastern Oregon. And we have access to a whole lot of history on them. They did a lot for the area. I live on Boardman Avenue as well, which was the first edition of the Jennings Lodge platting. And you're right, the history is there, but we did not, through our process, get any input from the experts. And we have been working on this for a year and a half. And we had a lot of input, so we could say so noted, but my idea, and actually it's not mine, I stole it from Commissioner Savas, but the idea was there's a real opportunity for multiple names. So it could be called the Boardman Wetlands because it is the headwaters of Boardman Creek, which we're not changing that name at this point, to my knowledge, and it connects onto Boardman Avenue. So all those being true, but there still is the playground area, there still is the classroom or scientific area, and it's not unlike when we get to Concord. There's the site, there's the main building, the community center, cultural center, there's the library, there's the park. All those have opportunity for their own sub-names. And what we're doing is looking at that name for the park. So I think it's alive and well, and there's a great opportunity to consider having other parks have other names, but according to the process that we follow from Clackamas County policies, we've met it, and these are the three choices that were at the tallest. So thank you. Yes, Missouri.
So to continue upon that, what failed in contacting the tribe to solicit to get their feedback with the naming? So I guess what failed so we can improve upon that. So if we do go down the path of naming this Boardman, et cetera, that the other adjacent properties we can then name appropriate to, I guess a non-westernized name.
Do you want to answer that, Mike?
Yeah, thanks. I wouldn't say anything really failed. What we were guided on in the way to approach this was to put out an invitation to the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, inviting them if they would want to be involved in the naming process. We went through our government affairs office to make that contact, and we asked a few times. And I think it was just something that I don't want to say it wasn't important. It just, they had other priorities that were going on, and they just weren't interested in engaging with us at this time. I don't think there was any real breakdown or failure. I'm just imagining they've got a lot of other things going on, and this just did not make their priorities. But we did invite them. There wasn't any breakdown in communications though, or anything like that caused it to fail. It was really just they didn't engage in that.
Okay. So yes, Ryan.
And in my experience, it's really having a solid relationship with the tribal communities. I don't know if we have that solid of a relationship yet. And it takes a lot of time because they're being asked by every single agency to, in some cases, do diversity work for those agencies, which is actually very inappropriate from the agencies. But so it takes a lot of time to work with the staff of the tribal community as well. So, and going up to the council is not the place where we venture. So just a little context.
Great. Okay. So our guidance is the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation Parks and Facility Naming Policy and Process, which was approved by the District Advisory Board in 2006 and by the Board of Directors in 2006 as well. So it says we initiated a process to recommend a park or facility naming, and we invited submissions. And we then had public notice on that, and it's time for us to make a choice and move on, the best I can tell. So without any other objections, call for a vote for what the first choice is, or do we already have a sense of, somebody want to make a recommendation what the first and second choice is, and we can vote for that together? I need a recommendation. Yes, Maureen.
Okay, thank you. Give me a minute. I'd like to nominate that the first choice submission be Boardman Wetlands Nature Park, and the second choice be Boardman Wetlands Natural Area.
Very good. Would somebody like to second that?
I will
I'll
second
second.
that.
Okay.
Point
is
of
that
order, Chair. Technically, you already have an active motion on the floor.
Yeah, okay, good. The motion on the floor was, okay, I'm just trying to get some clarification, was that we would vote, and that it wasn't clarified, so we're amending the motion maybe? I don't know what the,
What I would recommend it would be that Maureen, as the originator of the first motion, just withdraw that and restate her motion, and she doesn't have to say it again, just to say, I move that we restate what I just said, just to keep our record clean.
Okay, I move to negate what I said.
yeah, what you said first and what you say second, yes.
Okay.
And does somebody want to second that? Yes, Dave, is that what your hand's up for? No, can't tell. Need a second.
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. All right. Jessica, you want to, I don't know how we do it. We poll the group for yes or no to the motion.
Okay, Joel,
Abstain.
Musiri,
I'll vote for.
Ananda,
Yes,
Ryan,
Abstain.
Katie,
Yes.
Raphael,
Yes.
David,
Yes,
Maureen,
Yes.
Desi,
I abstain.
and Grover.
Yes. So that's 7 yeses, which is enough to carry our. So thank you all for that. Now, who sends this to the Board of, yes, Mike?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Next steps are going to be then we'll prepare something for the NCPRD board with your recommendation and the board action, and we'll bring that to them for the overall approval. And Commissioner Savas, maybe you have insight. I'm not sure if that's done as a policy session or under what meeting status it's done, but we would bring that to the board for them to approve.
Yeah, I would presume that we would have to schedule a NCPRD under issues, probably, perhaps. I don't think it's a big deal. And hopefully we don't have to wait for the next quarterly meeting to have that, to make that
Oh,
decision,
no.
hopefully sooner.
Yeah, no, I think we would just prepare a staff report saying that, on this date, the DAC recommends this action and ask the board to support that.
Yeah, I think we're good to go. You have pointed out which one is your first choice, so that'll help guide us. And if I may, I just want to just share something. And now that the vote's over, I have some comfort in sharing it, but I just want to express something. So I've been watching this naming process go on for a long time, and I'm glad that you have all come to a decision and worked out that. And I I can't help but think how many times this has come up. All four of my grandparents immigrated from Turkey in a small town, I'm joking, called Constantinople. And the name was changed. The name was changed to Istanbul. Okay. If you want to understand what war and fighting and controversy about naming a city is all about, that's the oldest known city in the world. And it went through a name change here about 100 years ago. So just want to share that with y'all. So thank you for not going to war.
All right, thanks. And it isn't first and second, it's first choice and an alternate is what the policy calls for. So as a minor point. So thanks all. Okay, next item. The Oak Lodge Library Concord property update.
And Chair, today we have Cindy Becker and Jason Varga. And let's see, there's Liz Manser and Jim Cavillage from OPSIS here to do a short presentation. So I'll turn it over to Cindy. And you're on mute, Cindy.
Sometimes that's the best place to be. So, thanks, everyone. As Mike said, I'm Cindy Becker. I work in county administration, and I am the project coordinator for both the Oak Lodge and Gladstone libraries. And so I sent out an email a couple of months ago, actually maybe 6 weeks ago, regarding the board's decision on the Oak Lodge Library. And the decision was to approve a freestanding library. And then both the Oak Lodge Library and the Gladstone Library were building of those facilities was put on hold for a year. The board is really interested in seeing what happens in the construction market, because the trends, as you all know, are just skyrocketing. And so there's the hope that at least they stabilize, if not come down a little bit within a year. And so since that time, we're in the process of working on an amendment with the IGA with Gladstone. And that amendment would call for an estimates, at least of the Gladstone project, in 9 months. So what the board also approved, however, for the Oak Lodge project is that we will continue on the design and get all the documents ready so that next year, when the board considers this again, that everything is ready should they approve it to go forward. So we can get right into the permitting and move forward. The board talked about a freestanding library, and I'm just confirming with this group, there have been discussions about the placement of that library. The initial conversations were, as you know, the library would have been attached to the Concord Community Center. The conversations after that had the library in the same place, but not attached to the community center. Then there was a discussion about moving the library along, I think it's Olive Street, I'm not sure. And so the confirmation is that we'll be moving forward with designs for the library next to the community center, next to the Concord School. Both our architects and our librarian feels this is a much more efficient and effective site for this building. And so I wanted to just talk to you about that. If you had questions about it, tomorrow night we're meeting with the Oak Lodge Concord Task Force, and we'll essentially be giving the same message. Jim or anybody else want to, Jason, Liz, anything else? Okay. Questions, Grover?
Yes, I happened to be present at the meeting on May 11th, nearly 2 months ago, when the motion was to move forward with a freestanding library design, making clear point, not the formerly discussed option 3, so there would be no confusion. And the plan you just said is the plan that you're going to go forward with is in fact an adaptation of option 3, and I significantly feel that does not represent what the board voted on specifically. They went on to vote on the thing called option 4. And option 4 says that to proceed with necessary design work, but delay construction to provide time for market stabilization. So both of those were about to design. It did not put it to fixed. Not a word was said in that. And I object strongly to that being done without community input at all, after the task force worked for 3.5 years, plus 2 years before that with the ad hoc group, to get us to that point. And we got it all approved. And then some fiasco of confusion said there isn't enough money and we can't go forward. And we put on hold for all those months, and to have it pull out this, not with what it said, is not acceptable from my point of view. And I'll stop there.
Mr. Savas. You're on mute.
Yeah, let me just say that I think the purpose of being here today is to at least hear from the NCPRD District Advisory Committee. It is your property in which this library will be placed on. I think the question here essentially is where the library is approximately, and so that they can do the design work and get the library moving forward. However, wearing that, your hat as a DAC, we wanted to get your guidance because the board, because you sent us a letter saying at that time and under that setting and in that context that the detached library was your choice. That's what the DAC has signaled to us by a vote. So the clarity is that if there's a discussion about moving the library away from that initial intent, the context of that vote and the letter that you all sent us from the DAC, then you need to make that determination upon yourselves. We assumed that at that time when the DAC voiced their opinion about that detached library, that we assumed that you all meant that it would be roughly in the same approximate location. If that's different, then that's different, but it's your property, so we want to be able to move forward. I can say that the board, it was not clear in understanding the option one or 3 or 4 or whatever you want to call it, because of some of the features such as the gymnasium, whether or not it would be there. So it was not clear, but I presume, again, being there at all those different tables, that that the assumption was that your letter again, or your recommendation again, was a detached library approximately in the area that was being discussed at the time. So if you're okay with that, great. We need to have your signal and okay that you authorize that or will allow us to do that in that area. And then the task force can work on the details as to what the library looks like, size, all of that stuff. But right now it's about the location. And Cindy, does that kind of cover it?
Yes, it does. And just for I'm not sure, since we've had 3 different committees, there was a discussion about the facility being in the other location. We looked at that, and there was never a vote on that. There was a vote that asked for a design of that building, of that facility in the other location, and that was not authorized. And so we did not go forward with that. And we did look at both locations, and at this point, we don't have a design. We do believe, for a number of reasons, that the other location on Olive would be more expensive and would have problems with just in terms of efficiency and the library and all the different pieces that went with that. I'm hoping not, and I have a long list of issues that I don't know that we need to go through, but we believe that based on our input from our architects and the librarian, that it is best suited in the location where everyone had agreed to have it to begin with, just not attached.
And I would add on that we can't move forward with figuring out, like, I know Grover, you and I have spoken many times about, the park design and how much land there's going to be for the park and the playground and things like that. But we can't move forward on any of those other design elements until we fix where the building's going to be. We can't just have a building design that's just floating out there that we move around like a Lego piece on a board. We've got to design where it's going to be. And so that's where Cindy's coming from, is we've looked at these other options that have been talked about. But to make these the get into this next phase of design, we have to make a choice on where the building's going to be so that we can figure out all this other stuff.
Okay, you done, Commissioner Savas?
Yes, yes, I am. Thank you. I'm
Anita,
available for questions if anyone has any.
Please and thank you. Yes, Anita, and then I'll go after you.
Yeah, as I recall, the language that the CPOs had in their motion to separate the library, and that also the library board and the task force had in their motions, didn't have any assumption about where the library would be. It didn't declare one way or another. The main goal of those motions was to separate the library financially from the development of the community center and make it an independent thing with its own timetable. That was the main intent of separating it. And I know there was talk about in the language of the motions, some of them included the idea that new design possibilities would be looked at and that we wouldn't automatically go into what was recently called design option 3. And that if we're going to choose a location, there's also the idea of what kind of a footprint, what shape is the library going to be? And that would also affect how big the park is and how the park's laid out. So I think the intent was with these community organizations was that we could look into more possibilities than just one, but that we separate it first so that it's financially ready to go, separate from the community center.
You want to go, Commissioner Savas, and then I will go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't disagree with your Anita, your recollection of what the CPOs did. Again, you are here as the NCPRD District Advisory Committee. You have a large piece of property in which a library will be placed on it. You want to build a park, you want to do all these things. You have a say. You, the DAC, have a unique say as to where the library approximately is placed. So that in essence, because NCPRD owns the property, you have to act in the best interest of the district as to how you want and where you want that placed. The CPOs and the task force all have input, but at the end of the day, wearing the hat of the DAC, you have some valued input as to where it goes. That's what we're seeking tonight, I think.
Okay, good. So I'd like to interject now. Actually, I am on the library board, have been on the library board since 2015, and we have a 1938 authorization to do library siting. And it is quoted in all the documents as far as the sequence of events that got us to here, that in fact happens. What's happened over these last 3.5 years is there's down to only one person who is still on the library board who is on that task force. So I actually want to address that, not in this conversation, but I will tomorrow, but that task force needs to be refleshed out to include the whole reason it was formed the way it was. It was 3/4 of NCPRD residents. And that's the part I want to make clear here. None of us on the DAC are in fact the people who say it is the priority of the residents. And to have us get no information until this very meeting that the decision was it's going to be right where we said it was going to be. And that's the way it is because all these good reasons, that is not giving this group adequate time to speak to our constituents to find out. But I happen to know because we have both the Oak Grove and the Jennings Lodge, both of which are on both sides of the Concord building property, etc. And they clearly did not say what's being said here. Oak Grove said is a desire. The library community strongly recommends the Oak Lodge Library be separate, freestanding library built to work in conjunction with the park at Concord. The current plan that you're promoting is the biggest negative impact on park. Just so you know, there's not been an adequate park design at all from having a park be an equal tri-part of that. And there are NCPRD, that's parks. Okay, so we are clearly failing in that department. Jennings Lodge said, I'm not Jennings Lodge, the library board said in a unanimous vote in accordance with the board order 8512, whatever it is, making a recommendation that the siting of the new Oak Lodge Library be separate from the Concord School Building, sustainably constructed with a park that works in concert with the library, and the opportunity for the board and community to consider options in addition to the declared now option 3. So those are not what the representatives are, and we don't own it. The residents own it. That's the same residents that live in the library district and library service areas, and the same residents that live in NCPRD. They're the ones that actually own it, and not the people at this group. We represent those folks, and we did not have adequate information to get feedback on what's being, again, at the last minute, that this is the way it is. I object strongly. Yes, Mike.
Just a couple of things for everybody to keep in mind. First, nobody's coming in at the last minute. We've been talking about this for months, and these options have been out there for months. What's being brought back tonight is the culmination of staff being told to go back and look at what our options are based on what had been thrown out there as available options. The one that was talked about over on Olive Avenue, we went to the board and asked, hey, do you want to spend additional design money on that option? And they told us no. And so we're back to the original option. But all of that, this isn't anything that's just popping up tonight. We've been discussing these same issues this whole time. Secondarily to that, everybody needs to remember the library is a county building. NCPRD owns the property. So there's going to have to be some agreements and IGAs that happen to facilitate this that have not yet gone on, of the particulars of how the building is going to, operate on NCPRD property. And I know that I have always been told to surround myself with other experts that know more than what I do. And I've got architects, engineers, and the librarians themselves that have all come out and said that an option like the one listed out on Olive Avenue is not a good option for optional efficiency and access and all of that. We've also heard in all of these discussions of other locations of this building being located that there's increased cost to run additional utilities and separate things out even more and additional civil work. And so we were asked as staff to go back and look at what our options are within the scope of the building being separate and where the best location is. And I'm deferring. I don't have a strong opinion because I wasn't involved in all of this before. I see where it could go in several locations, but we have to make that decision on where it's going to go for them to be able to move forward with the design. And the experts are telling us that this is the best location for all of this other stuff. I'm not seeing that there's any insult intended. We're trying to move the process forward as we've been directed to do. And we have to make recommendations to move the project forward. And that's what Cindy's doing. So sorry, Cindy, I didn't want to step on your toes or other things that you wanted to say, but anyways, sorry. Thanks, Cindy.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you. Yes, as Mike said, this has been discussed. There was never any agreement. I find it interesting. This has been talked about for a long time. At some point, we have to move forward. We're not going to design. We're not going to spend the money, to be honest, and ask the board to design 2 buildings. Someone had asked me, well, can't we just design a building and then decide where it goes? Well, because of the landscape, we're talking about 2 very different buildings. And it doesn't make sense from an economic perspective to do that. The original option that everybody liked, which was attached to the community center, everyone liked that site. And so we're just not attaching it, but we're keeping it at the same site. So it is, I guess it's unclear why there is such a desire on some people's parts to move it. It makes the most sense from a variety of different aspects, and we need to move forward with this project. And so, yes, the board did say a freestanding library. And it wasn't until actually the last 1 or 2 meetings that this other location was even brought up by you, Grover. And all along in this whole time I've been involved, we've been talking about the location next to the school. So we would like to move forward. We would like to have do design. But as Commissioner Savas said, we're having this conversation with the DAC, but it's the last change in the location was really came in the last few months where we have these conversations. So I'm not sure what else to say. I don't know how long we can continue to talk about this without moving forward.
Ms. Suri, go ahead, please.
Hi, so I'm a little new, and I listened on some of these meetings, but for me, it's hard to make a decision when you have to rehash what was there and when you're not represented with a graph, a visual aid. I'm a visual learner of where the library, what we're talking about right now. So when you were talking, Cindy, I had to go back, reference drawings, quick Google searches. So as just for me personally, it's hard to be asked to make a decision on something when I do not have a mental reference as to what exactly someone is talking about that moment in time. And then a secondary point is you were talking about how there are a lot of points as to why the library should be here. There's architects were involved, designers were involved. Michael was talking about it too. Engineers were involved. Could we see that data as to what these people were presenting to you? Because that would help our decision too. If we're being asked to make a decision, and we don't have that data, it's hard to agree with you that, oh yeah, that is the best place because of passive solar energy, or we can install a geothermal loop over here that frees up a 1/4 acre, whatever it may be. So the lack of detail and the lack of visual aids for me make this a difficult, it's difficult for me personally. I'm speaking just for myself right now. And as I should be speaking for the people in the community that I represent, it's hard to make that bidirectional communication without that additional detail.
I appreciate that. I didn't know there were new members to the DAC, so I thought we were talking to the same group who's been involved. So I understand that.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I'll restate what I said earlier. Maybe I'll use some different words here, but and to Anita's point as well, the renderings, speaking to Ms. Suri's point about having a visual reference, the renderings, all the work that was done had 3 options with the library in approximately the same area. Every decision that would, every group that sent a letter, whether they said, yeah, we like the detached or whatnot, was under the presumption that the library would be approximately in that area. That's a fact, but you're not, if you all feel that you want to study this, this is not a drop dead moment. All we're here to say, we're trying to affirm if the decision you all made, or the letter, the recommendation you made to have a detached library, we want to affirm that the intent was where the library, the renderings, and all the work was done over the last 3 years. If you want to change that entirely, and you think it's in the best interest of NCPRD to change that entirely, I guess you have that option. The project will be delayed. It may cost more. It may not pass the muster of my colleagues to add a cost to do another study and to do more engineering to look at it at a different location. That is probably a consideration that there could put the project at risk. But I just want to say that we're here tonight to affirm if that is what you meant when you said detached. Thank you.
Okay, so this group actually said to recommend that the Oak Lodge Library with its independent funding be developed right away as a freestanding building with the park designed concurrently to complement the library. It made no reference to the same location. And I want to be clear, the 3 choices were that group, I was part of that group. We spent 3.5 years working out through 13 different models and came down to one that was the most practical because of the use of the space of them being connected. And then we, like you at the Board of County Commissioners, got a curve thrown that all of a sudden said finances, which have been assured, are in fact not what we were assured. And it's a big problem. And in August, we were put on hold and have not had meaningful meetings since August. And then December, it was decided, okay, well, we better hurry up and decide. And here are the 3 choices that you get to choose from. You get to choose chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. No, it's that you get to go and do the original plan, which everybody thinks is way too expensive. I'm not going to argue that. Or you can do a watered down plan of the variation on the original plan, or you can move it over 25 feet from the original plan, but that doesn't take into account the amount of terrain that has to be altered. That is on the side of a hill. Jim, how far does that property drop from the top of the property to the bottom of the property in feet, approximately?
It drops 11 feet, but the building is raised
No,
up.
no. From the top of Spalding to down to the bottom of where the property comes out, that's a lot more than 11 feet.
Oh, I was just referring to the location for the library, just to complete that thought. It's pretty flat on top from Spalding, and then it drops well, let me just complete. At least these are the numbers that I'm aware of from working on it. It's the back of the library, it's 11 feet, but then we raise the library up 30 inches. So it's an 8.5 foot drop. But then but to the east, or excuse me, west end of the property, there's continues to be further drop. There's a significant drop with the parking lot, the corner of the parking lot at the.
I understand. No, I actually meant from where Spalding Avenue enters the property to all the way down to where the property ends at the back of the Walnut.
Right.
Building. It's okay.
I was referring to the entry to the Concord School. That's an 11-foot drop.
I appreciate it. That wasn't what I was talking about. I'm talking about how much dirt's going to have to be moved to move it 25 feet over and how it wipes out.
Well, that's what I'm referring to, actually. I am referring to that, and there's just.
Thank you.
That's a fact. Okay.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
A massive amount of dirt. I want to go back to what Missouri said. We have no data on how much it's going to cost to move all that dirt to bring that library down to the same height as the subterranean Concord building. It's 5 feet below grade out at that building, and you're going to go down to that plus or minus a few feet, which is a huge amount of dirt to move, and it really has a negative impact on the park. But I don't want to go to that. We can't make a decision if we don't have information, like Missouri said.
I do want to
blindsiding here.
Can I add one other comment just about the library relationship to the park? It's actually from the prior design when it was attached to this design, there's a much stronger relationship to the park. In fact, that was one of the attributes that people on the task force commented on, that there's a courtyard and landscape that the library opens up to. Some of the comments were, can the library be more engaged with the park? And that is one of the assets of this particular layout versus the original one, where there was kind of this grand stadium steps, as you might recall. So that's one of the things that it's kind of a trade-off, stadium steps versus a really nice landscape courtyard that the library opens up to into the park. So that is one of the differences, and really based upon feedback that we received.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so more hands up. Okay, Cindy, you never put your hand down. Are you still in line to speak again?
Not right this second.
Okay, good, thank you. And then Anita, your hand is still up?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I'm just uncomfortable with this language about there was an assumption somehow in all those motions from the community groups that we wanted it more or less in the same place. And I'm not against one of the new locations that's been proposed, but just the idea of being assumed we wanted that when that was not stated still makes me uncomfortable. And Jim, I appreciate what you just described as the different relationship with the park, because I know that the quality of the park is really important to a lot of people
Yeah,
in the community. And just speaking for myself, not for anybody else, I kind of like the idea of a big courtyard and a library that's sort of integrated to the park.
Mhm.
But that's just me. I'm not saying anybody else wants that. But yeah, I just didn't want any assumptions. It seemed like, okay, you separate the library and have it be on its own timetable. Then you get everybody together and say, well, what do we want the library to look like? What shape is it, et cetera, instead of like, here's the new library design that we didn't get to participate in. That's my issue.
So I do have my hand up now.
Okay, go ahead, Cindy.
So I'm a little concerned here because it seems like it's a little different than at least I recall. We had many conversations with the advisory committee. We showed them comparisons of different models and various options. And we brought not only the architect in meetings, but engineers in meetings. There was lots of conversations. The other groups that submitted their information about what they support, they were not aware of any other conversations about a freestanding library, any other place, and we had initially proposed it. The additional location that was proposed, I think it was in March, was not part of the conversations with any of the other boards. So I think it was a natural assumption when they were talking about the freestanding library that was the one that we had been talking about for months. So there was a lot of information shared with the advisory committee. We also met with the DAC, met with the library board. So I guess I'm a little bit concerned that it's being portrayed that all of a sudden we're coming up with something that hadn't been discussed. It has been discussed in detail.
Good. So thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. I don't agree with the part about in detail. Having been in all of those meetings, except the only meeting I wasn't in was the Oak Grove Community Council meeting. But the library is supposed to be 25% of the task force, which it is no longer because of the number of years that have gone on. But the library is responsible for the citing. And the citing did not, in the library's terms, it specifically says opportunity for the board, that'd be the library board, and community to consider options in addition to option 3. That's in plain English. It's in the document. It is what was said. So this presumption wanted that, I don't know where that came up, because the last thing that the task force spoke to was we voted to get more information about rough idea costs of moving it over to Olive Avenue. And the response came back is the chair, not the board, the chair was unwilling to do that. So if in fact it was a vote of the board of directors, then that's news to me because it was the chair. And we are supposed to, as of what happened on May 11th, we're ready to go into designing and planning to be ready by before May of next year, to ready to go with plans and everything. And now it's saying, nope, but you don't get to design. You have to start from this place. That's all. And I'm not reading anything in the chat, so I hope none of them is expecting me to be part of that. Yes, Raphael.
Just kind of see the same thing that Suri was saying. Being a new member, I'm just hearing a bunch of conversations. Would it be possible to just get some of the data so we could actually just take a look at it? Otherwise, my vote would mean nothing, right? And then give us a date that we could review that data and you get the actual input that you're looking for. Or otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels on this. And we're coming close to 6:40 already.
Thank you. Anita.
Yeah, I just want to speak one more time. The original process involved soliciting a lot of input from the public, and it was kind of like partnering with the public. And then somehow it went off to what feels to me like a different direction, where other people, not the public, but other people within the county were generating ideas and then saying, do you like this or do you like this? But we weren't being solicited for ideas about what we wanted now that we're going to have a freestanding library. Somehow that part disappeared.
Right. Thank you. Ryan.
So I just need a clarification here because there's a lot going on in this discussion and we're going into a lot of rabbit holes. So tell me if I'm wrong, and Michael, I'd love for you to like pop in, or Heather. I think it was December or late winter, early winter, we discussed the three options to understand the cost of the community center and the library. And at that time we talked about, hey, the freestanding library looks great. Looks like a winner. And then from there, we kind of recommended we go with the freestanding library at that location. Is that correct, Michael? Okay. And I mean, we can check the records, Grover, if we need to. Yeah, and
here
recommended that a freestanding library go at the park location. Is that correct?
It just says independent funding for the library to develop right away as a freestanding building with the park design concurrent to to complement the library.
Okay, so
statement about location.
Well, that's the park. It's the location we're talking about. The same location. Or now we have magical locations that popped up elsewhere in the
No.
So
It's okay.
my concern is like, we're kind of going down this rabbit hole where we keep bringing this up. And as far as I remember, and I'd love other members that were there at the time to speak up, that we had talked about it being at that location, but we are separating the two buildings. So the library could be constructed and the community center could be constructed on a different timeline. Is that correct or not? Everybody, please, heads, yes, no.
Yes, library, yes, and the building separate, yes. Now the location did not get said in what you just said.
Are you talking about the exact location, like 5 feet off of the
No,
center?
the approximate location is, no.
I disagree. It was still at the park. And why we're going over new locations doesn't make any sense to me.
It's all at the park. Yes, Katie.
I just want to say I
Oh,
really
you weren't done? You weren't done? I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry.
Like, I'm really confused. Are we talking about moving, sorry, Katie, are we talking about moving the library to the other side of the park? Are we talking about moving the library to another location? What are you talking about moving the library? I'm just really a little lost here.
Well, that really addresses what Missouri and Raphael had to say. The DAC does not have specific information, that has not been in the trenches looking at the details, looking at the impact it has on all the parts. No, it hasn't. It's just like, oh, okay, well, yes, the Concord building is where it is. It isn't moving. Now, the next question is, how does the remaining land either be park or library, and how do they integrate? And that has not been decided by anybody except the staff.
Go ahead.
I will just say that the library amenities and the layout that was in the original master plan that everyone agreed to after 3 years of work are all there. In
Yep.
fact, the only amenity that changed was the stadium steps went away in lieu of creating a landscape kind of small amphitheater courtyard off of the library. And there was discussion. Originally, we had a 20-foot separation between the library and the Concord School, and we increased that to 25 feet, showed drawings of that, and all of a sudden it became a space where the library could have a meeting room that opens up to it, and pathway connections between the Concord School and the library. Anyway, just maybe more detail than you need, but I just wanted to make sure people are aware of that.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm looking at the information that Mr. put into the chat, and I think there's just this undeniable community benefit to having a library in the same place as a park, and I can understand where there might be some concerns about past discussions, but it sounds like it's become more accessible as it's become a separate building. So it sounds like a lot of positive things have developed out of that. I don't know where we're at for this topic right now, but I think when you add a park to where a library is, it's just such a huge benefit for families, especially with young children. Getting kids actually to go to the library is much easier when you have a park versus when it is just a freestanding library. So just have to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And I just want to clarify, there was never a question, and the part that has been objectionable by most of the people, by many people in the task force, is the lack of focus on the park. It was like, it's whatever there's left over, that's going to be the park. Now, nobody ever said it that way, but you watched how it went from being attached to being 25 more feet into the park and that space and so on and so forth. So it was then nailed down. Okay, well, that's where it's going to be. It's still going to be a park. The park has been part of it all along. Park, community center, and library. So it's just how they get configured. And there was no, by any of the groups I'm in, there has been no consensus. In fact, the last time the task force met, they wanted to explore where in the park would the library be in addition to or besides in what the staff was calling option 3. Yes, Commissioner. Oh, I'm sorry, Joel first.
Maybe I should defer to you, Paul or Commissioner. I appreciate your response to me in chat too. So just to kind of get back, I feel like we're off the rails here. I've really lost. I mean, there's so much minutia being thrown around. It's just the decision right now in front of us is to affirm or not our previous recommendation. And I suppose a third option would be to table it with the possibility of that creating delays, construction costs rising, et cetera. Can we try to focus on making one of those decisions right now? Because I feel like we are banging our heads into the wall right now. And I don't feel like we're getting a lot of new information here. We're just getting very argumentative. So again, Paul, I'll defer to you. I apologize if I didn't state exactly what you had written, but I think that's what you had said to me or responded to me in the chat. And those seem pretty cut and dry as far as our decisions. So maybe we could focus on those.
Yeah, and thanks, Joel. I put the chat, I thought I hit everyone so everyone could read it. So everyone should be able to see it. Yeah, to everyone. So I wrote, Joel, to affirm or not that the NCPRD recommendation was that the DAC approves or approved of the detached library, and presumably, honestly, presumably the location displayed in the 3 renderings of approximately in that area. Grover, I think you're technically correct that no one said that it's exactly here, but no one ever questioned it either. And the vote at the task force was virtually split. It did have barely a majority to consider whether or not the board would approve more architecture work, more design, and relocating it. But frankly, with respect to the hat we're all wearing here tonight, you have a lot of say. The DAC has a lot of say. Grover, you're technically correct. The bylaws or the language, does give the library board approval of citing it approximately, but it doesn't give them the approval to cite it on someone else's property without their authorization. So if you look at it just in the context of NCPRD, what is in the best interest of this park property to have a library, a community center, and a park? If you don't like where the library is, then let us know. If you want to move forward with it, where we all presume, because there were, I think at least Cindy or Jim, how long were those renderings out there of option 1, 2, and 3? Is at least a year, as I recall, right?
Yeah, they were out there for quite a while, and there was quite a bit of input on the renderings and a lot of discussion about the negatives, positives, but mostly really a long list of positives of still keeping that location. And the direct relationship to the community centers really advantageous. If you're not going to physically attach, to be so close. We heard from both librarian staff and even Michael from representing parks. If you look at the operators of these 2 facilities, Michael, as well as the library, there was consensus that this was a good direction.
Yeah, and then I do also want to recognize that Cindy's correct, that the idea of moving the library or studying it somewhere else, like on Olive Street, was something that came at the very tail end.
Yes.
And that was split. There was not really a consensus. And so, again, I don't want to jeopardize the project. I don't want to delay your meetings any further, but I think you have a choice. If you want to revisit it, great. Thank you, Ms. Siri, for putting in the link to the renderings. Maybe we could put the renderings up so everyone can see them, but they don't have access to the link. So you can see what was displayed and what the community overwhelmingly liked, option 1, 2, or 3. But no one ever questioned the location exactly to something more remote like Olive Street until the very end. And so, again, that was not a unanimous vote like everything else had been prior. Thank you.
Well, I want to make it clear about the distance. At the border, at the Red Soils property, the 2 buildings, the BCS building and the one okay, those are farther apart than the library would be from than to the community center. Those 2 buildings with that courtyard in between are farther apart than the proposed idea of putting on Olive Street. So I just want to be clear, this idea about remote. And then secondarily, the whole reason the library board was there was to decide, yes, we would prefer to have it be sited on the Concord property. So we moved forward on that, and we came up with putting it on bringing it all together and have it be getting the benefit of all 19,500 square feet, with almost 4,000 of it being duplicate space with the parks, but it still is usable by both. And all these other plans came later, and they did not have wide conversations. It was the task force went months without being able to meet, from August till to December, or actually late November, to being able to meet. So it wasn't like there was all these conversations. Yes, they kept pushing these same 3, and everybody eliminated the first one. And you yourself, sir, talked about, well, why don't we do option 1? Because then that does all of the seismic stuff. The walls get taken care of, the ceiling gets taken care of, and now we're in that other conversation. So my biggest concern is the failure to listen to the people who spent the most time, energy, focus on this design from the community, because they're not in this meeting. Yes, Anita.
Yeah, I'd just also like to reiterate that the public involvement part seemed to go way down once we got to the financial crisis. And then things got generated without public input. And such as, well, for one thing, the library design took a whole new turn in terms of a style. And I don't know where that came from, but it didn't come from public input. So that part has always confused me.
Okay. So I'm not of the opinion that we have the capacity to, with at least 3 new people who have no prior knowledge. And I'm not in favor of consenting to that. Yes, we agree, other than what we said last time, the exact wording. A motion was approved at the March meeting to have the DAC recommend that the Oak Lodge Library with its independent funding be developed right away. So we didn't get to do that, as a freestanding building with the park designed concurrently. That means it's still not designed to complement the library. That's what we voted on and approved. Yes, Joel.
In the interest of making some forward progress tonight, can I make a motion to table this discussion for a month until our August meeting, so we can get, in the interest of getting our new members and current members up to speed on the status of this before we make a decision?
I second that.
I second, yeah.
And in the discussion, my request is to echo what was said by several. They need data well before the August meeting to be able to decide. We've already spent millions of dollars, both from NCPRD funding and library funding and Gladstone funding and county funding. And we have no accountability for how that money has been spent, where it's been spent. And I'm going to make a specific request that that be provided, as well as the difference in the costs of one location or another location. And to repeat what Anita said, why the style all went to all brick as opposed to a beautiful glass veneer, all those things didn't get decided. They just evolved. Yes, Paul.
Go ahead and vote. I'll comment after your vote.
Okay, good. So, yes, Mike, you want to speak?
Well, you made several amendments and additions onto the original motion. Typically, the person making the motion has to agree.
No, my motion stands as I originally stated it. If anyone wants to request whatever Grover just listed off, they're welcome to, but I just want the motion to table this. That my motion is not amended.
I got it, and I didn't expect it was. All right, Cindy, you want to speak now?
I'm sorry, no.
Put your hands up, that's all. Okay, good. All right, so Jessica, you want to poll the group?
Sure. Joel,
Yes.
Musiri,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Raphael,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Desi,
Yes.
and Grover.
Okay, so that passes 10-0. And now Commissioner Savage, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just ask you all, so we don't get in a circular discussion or in the future, just looking ahead. You just ask yourselves at whenever you discuss it, whatever you put on the agenda, that you actually figure out amongst yourselves what you believe is in the best interest of the Parks District for placement of the library. I'm not saying independent of public comment or independent of the task force, but in the end, because what could happen is if unless you're going to defer that decision, if you want to defer that decision to the task force, then great. But we wouldn't want to go and say, geez, we want to, where we're going to go back and forth, where the task force makes one recommendation, the library board makes another recommendation, the CPOs make another, and then you all who own the property are at a weaker position or not. So just bear that in mind, that we want to get away from the circular argument. And I do apologize. No one, no one expected COVID. That created a lot of hardship with the DAC being inactive and not having really a membership to be part of this long 3-year work on this project. That's why the task force was kind of put together. And it was put together, ideally, it would have been put together with DAC members, but there was no DAC membership really at that time because of COVID and all the other disruptions. So it has been a disruptive time. We all have to own that. I get that. But I just want to make sure that we get to a point where we're making progress. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yep. Cindy, your hands up.
It is, first of all, staff is not your enemy. We have been trying to provide as much information as we can. We've been having many circular conversations. We'd like to be able to authorize our architects to move forward. We can have these conversations for months and there won't be, I don't even know when the library will be built. We were trying to go along with the location of the library because that in fact was a location that folks had been talking about for quite a long time. We want to see you get a beautiful library. We want, again, we're not the enemy here. We've been trying, we provided an extraordinary amount of information. We'd be very happy to provide that again to the new members. However, I can probably say that the board is not going to want to spend a lot of money to do various designs. These costs, these were at cost, as what Grover said. There's been a lot of money spent and a lot of time invested in the work that we have to date. The location that was talked about on Olive was a 2-story location. That's a whole different ballgame. We have renderings of what these designs would look like. Again, happy to show you all of that. We would also like to move forward. So,
Thank you. Michael?
Just more on a practical measure for Katie and Raphael and Masiri. If there's information other than what is available on all of our public messaging, and thank you, Masiri, for leaving that link over in the chat to the March meeting where we talked about different locations and stuff. But if there's other information that you need to be brought up, please just reach out to Jessica or myself after the meeting. Let us know, and we'll try and get you whatever you need to bring you up to speed.
Thank you, Michael. Brian.
Yeah, I have a request from Michael and or staff that whenever we have a conversation like this, we talk about to what level we're going, because right now I feel like we're doing design review, and it'd be really nice to know what is the appropriate place for the DAC to sit in these discussions, because we're kind of, and I've seen this before happen a lot. I've done this 22 years, seen a lot of boards and commissions, and we really need that framework, please, so that we can better guide the board on what we're making decisions on. Are we making it on exact siting on the site, or are we making it on the design review? Just, it would be great to have that information on each topic. So that's my request for the future. I don't know if that's a motion or not, I doubt it.
And that's what we're trying to do, Ryan. And that's one of the reasons why Cindy's here, is we're trying to bring back what work staff has been working on and what we see as the pathway forward. The problem is we've got a lot of different bodies that are providing the input, and for us to try and clarify all of that down into one recommendation to the board is very difficult, because as you see, we start to rehash the same things and talk about the same things that have been talked about previously, and it just muddies things up. So I would love to be able to have a clear definition of who makes recommendations and decides on what. Typically, this level of discussion would be just coming and saying, this is where we're making the recommendation. We want to see if everybody's generally okay or generally not okay, and then bring that feedback to the board for the board to be able to say, yes, move forward with design located at XY. With all of the other groups and bodies that are involved, it makes it just very, very difficult for us to move that forward. So, and I know you recognize that.
John Ryan. Thank you. I'm making my request just in general that we have adequate information before we're asked to make any kind of decision about stuff and things like, I won't repeat it, I've said enough, but we need to have adequate information in a timely fashion, as opposed to, well, here it is, what do you think? That's it on that topic. Next topic, any more on Oak Lodge, Library, and Concord property? Seeing none. Changes of status updates.
Sorry, muted. We had included in your agenda packet the report that we provided to the board on SDC methodology update and where that's at. I would direct your attention to the August looking forward part of the agenda as well, where we anticipate having FCS making a presentation with potentially the initial recommendations or possibilities for methodology. That would be at next month's meeting, barring any delays. It may be September, but we're shooting for August right now. We don't really have an update on Milwaukee Bay Park. We're still at 100% design. Things are just generally moving forward still as far as the small detail aspects, but we're just kind of in a holding pattern with much of that. We've talked about Concord ad nauseum. Probably don't need to go into that anymore. From the funding update, we do have our approved and adopted budget available. It is online on our website now. If there are any DAC members that would like a printed and bound copy printed by us, please reach out and let Jessica know, and we'll get those printed out. You can also print it on your own if you want. but it's a pretty weighty document, so we're more than happy to do that. But please let Jessica know, and we're only printing limited runs of it, just basically by need or request, and we don't have a lot of, we just threw away cases and cases and cases of old budgets and printed material. So we're trying to save a few trees. So if you want one, we're more than happy, just let us know. Next month, we'll also be giving our unaudited fourth quarter report, so it'll be our end of the year numbers, but unaudited numbers. Audits getting ready to kick off, or already has just recently. CIP, the systems plan and CIP timeline, no real change in status update, just for the new folks. Our hold up right now, we're shooting for doing a needs assessment and CIP process first as part of a kind of chunked out, phased systems planning process. Just practically, it's what we need most to start with, and what we can get most easily done. So we're in the development process right now of moving that forward in scope, and looking at procurement on trying to get the needs assessment started, and then that driving the CIP public engage, very public process that we're looking at. So that's those are the updates. If anybody's got any questions on any of that stuff. Thank you.
Yes, Anita.
Yeah, could you just go a little bit more into the public process and the needs assessment? Is it going to be like the kind of, like you did really robust outreach to do the park naming? I mean, I have this list here, right? You did postcards, social media, park signage, e-blast, flyers, press release. Is it going to be something like that?
No. So that's our non-scientific marketing strategy plan. What we're talking about is a scientifically driven, statistically validated needs, district-wide needs assessment as the first step to our systems planning process. And so the basic questions that we try and find out in this needs assessment is, what do you use right now? How often do you use it? How much do you like using it? What would you like to see in the future? Where would you like to see things? Where would you like to, how far is it for you to get to a park if you had to walk there? Do you want to see more trails? So it's the overall needs assessment. And the way that we do that is through focus group meetings, stakeholder meetings, a statistically validated survey, lots and lots and lots of public outreach. What's spit out at the end, the end product of that is a very robust report on how the district in a statistically validated scientific process tells us what their needs are, with some priorities, with some definitive goals. And we use that ideally to start the process to drive our CIP list, and how we approach the CIP should be somewhat driven by the results that we get from the needs assessment.
Oh, that's fabulous. I like hearing about that. Yeah.
Exciting.
Since you fleshed it out, then I have a better picture of what you're planning to do. Needs assessment sounds fabulous. I like all those aspects of it. Thank you.
More information to come. Thank you.
There is a question in the chat, which is where do we stand on the zoned SDC analysis? Is it still on track for completion by August for the elimination of the zones?
That is in your packet. That's the information that we're just talking about. We just that's the information that we shared with the board last week. No, we're not going to have a decision in August. August would be at the earliest the first time that you all, as the advisory body, are seeing the results from the SDC methodology change. Heather, you can jump in. I can't remember if we stay on track with August and with the 90-day waiting period or response periods and board action. When are we anticipating? It's like December, January.
Yeah, if we have the methodology ready for review with the consultant in August or even September, we'd be shooting for December, January with the 90-day timeline, and it will depend a little bit on how much review there is and how much has to be redone. So we want to make sure we're presenting a very robust first draft methodology, so you guys can see that and have comment, and then the intent would be to bring it back. So It depends a little bit on you in some cases, but we have to get you the information so you can talk about it, and that information has to be good. So hopefully that's August. September's a great backup, and we will just keep moving toward that December, January endpoint.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay. So anything else onto the status updates? Okay, next item is public comment. So Jessica, do we have people in the audience?
No one has their hand raised at this time.
All right, if you're in the audience and you wish to speak, would you please raise your hand at this time? How many people are in the audience, Jessica?
There are 7, and
Thank you.
we still don't have any hands raised.
Okay, good. All right, so then that would close our public comment period. It's time for DAC member reports. Yes, Maureen.
Hi, I just like to tell everybody that David and I took a couple mornings over the last several weeks and hopefully visited every park in our sub area 4 and had a chance to really walk around and admire the wonderful city and county that we live in, and engage just briefly with maybe a couple people who seemed delighted with their parks. And we hope David and I can continue to do some site visits and be able to report with you that we're, doing some outreach and continue to grow with that. I'm not making any promises. We're getting out there and we're walking the paths and we're looking at where things are and how some areas are nicely well kept and others are struggling to keep up with maintenance, and there's overall a really good feeling, but we continue to put ourselves available to our constituents. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Maureen, as well, and David. So is that you, Joel?
Thanks. This is, I guess, directed to the newer members, but also to everyone as per usual. As a representative from the Milwaukee Community Center, or from community centers, but the only one right now is the Milwaukee Community Center. I wanted to make sure you all were extended an invitation to come check out the facility if you haven't already. Despite the name, it serves the entire district, including some great programs like the Meals on Wheels program, which serves the entire district. We have a 11-member board. We only have 10 right now, so we do have a vacancy. And with the exception of sub area or zone 3, sub area 3, pardon me, we have representation on our board from every sub area. And so we meet the second Friday of every month, 9:30 a.m. You're all welcome to attend a meeting if you'd like, or if you know anyone that may be interested in joining our board. It's a terrific opportunity to volunteer, and we'd love to have them at least come check out a meeting. So please come by and check out the facility. We do a lot of great things over there. We did skip our July meeting because we had our annual joint meeting with the foundation at the end of June. So I don't have an update on the recently occurring Clack on Tap, which was a big fundraiser for the Milwaukee Community Center Foundation. Hopefully I can share some updates with that, but I know also in the division reports, there was at least a recap where they touched on the Great American Barbecue that happened the 1st of July. And I think there's the ice cream socials coming up in August, but I think I'll have time to remind you of all that so you can come out and get your free sundaes. But anyway, check out the Milwaukee Community Center if you're not familiar with it, please.
Thank you, Joel. Yes, Anita.
In sub area 2, the trolley trail passes through and crosses Oak Grove Boulevard. And the brainchild of the historic downtown Oak Grove nonprofit, or HDOG, has been a festival that would be every year. And it's back this year. It's on Saturday. It's from 11 to 4. NCPRD will be represented there in one of the booths. There'll be many, many booths, and there'll be live music and plenty of food and drink. So that's 11 to 4. And then there's an after party at Awakening Coffee that goes from 6 to 9.
Great, thanks. Anything else?
Well, sure, why not? The last meeting we had, I think Ryan mentioned, let's see, it's called IAP2. And I got really intrigued by it. And I've since found out that our other DAC member, Raphael, also is well-versed in IAP2. And I think it really applies to public participation in NCPRD matters. And I would love, unless I'm the only one who doesn't know much about it, I would love for there to be a presentation at some point at one of our meetings by one of our experts, or both of them, or something like that.
That'd be a great idea. So make a note for one of our future meetings. Okay, great. Okay, well, I will give her, sir, do you want to give a report on sub-area 1, or do you want me to?
You go for it. Next time.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So as part of the Jennings Lodge CPO, which in the heart of is Jennings Lodge School, which is owned by Oregon City School District. And there's a significant concern. We had a meeting with representatives from the Oregon City School District about their plans and the changes they're making. Jennings Lodge School will no longer be a school. They're moving the students over to the other school on the other side of McLaughlin, Candy Lane. And that leaves that, it's quite an issue. So in the September meeting of the Jennings Lodge CPO, we're going to have Oregon City back, but the concerns are what's going to happen to that property. Because if they don't maintain it as a school, they'll lose their zoning variance or whatever it is. And we have an intergovernmental agreement for the last year plus to develop that. And I noticed that it's being carried forward into this coming year, but I don't know where we are on that, and I am concerned, and the community is concerned. So that's all I want to communicate. There are a number of people who are significantly concerned. We had 19 people specifically who expressed their concerns about that, and I would like to be able to have it be something that we can let them know where we stand on that and how it's developing. Yes, Mike.
We'll include information in your August meeting about that, because we have been meeting with the school. There's still a few questions out there, but so I don't want to speak prematurely, but I'll bring information to the August meeting.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. So anyone else for DAC member reports? Seeing none. Next item is the district monthly report.
I don't have anything to add on to really the really comprehensive monthly reports broken out by division, other than we are in full summer mode. We were talking about the string quartet concert last night. We had movies in the park this past weekend with about 300 participants. Rec mobiles out and operating. Programs are going, day camps are going, everything's just humming along. We are still short-staffed on our seasonal employees, as everybody is, but we are making the best with what we've got, and really we're really trying to just make sure that the programs don't suffer for that. So people have been getting creative, and staff have been out doing some other duties as assigned as needed when folks aren't available. But other than that, we're excited to have our new budget, and we're starting to put the recruitment paperwork together for the new positions that were authorized for this year. For the new folks, the 3 new positions. One is a program manager that'll take on overseeing all of our recreation programming. And then we had a couple of other positions that are part of a reorganization. And again, for Ms. Musiri or Katie or Raphael or anybody that wants a reminder, that is in our budget book of the kind of new positions and how it all fits within the org chart. And if you want more information, please just reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'll leave it at that since we're running long. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so that's the district monthly report. Future dates. The August agenda submission is no later than Wednesday, July 20th at 5 p.m. So if you have suggestions to make for the upcoming agenda, please get into that. And there's a link on the NCPRD website on how to do it, or you can send it to DAC at ncprd.com. The next agenda setting meeting is Monday, July 25th. It doesn't have a time, and I want to know how that works or doesn't work for Ryan.
And Ryan just had to go. So
Okay.
we'll coordinate the time and make sure that date still, if Mondays work for him, and we'll coordinate with you and he chair.
Okay, great, thanks. And the next DAC meeting is Wednesday, August 10th. And so far, the known planned agenda items are the draft SEC methodology presentation discussion and the pre-audit fourth quarter, both of which have been prior announced. So is there any further business? Seeing none. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. It's now 7:22.